Hey everybody, so here's a topic that I get a lot. Like when I'm doing my onboarding calls for mastering the game of Allyship, I ask people, what are you hoping to get out of this container? And one of the biggest things that comes up for people is a desire to make sure that in their attempt of being an ally, they don't cause more harm than good. And I really resonate with that. A lot of what went into making this course and really starting to do this work was my own fears that do I really want to be another voice that's adding to this chaos? Am I really doing something that sort of helps people? Ultimately, what I found was the only way for me to know what good I was or wasn't doing was by showing up and taking messy action in alignment with what I cared about. For me, it is consciousness engineering, personal development, developmental levels, parts integration theory. And so I had to find this very specific thing that I cared about and offer it sort of to the collective. So if you yourself are concerned about harm reduction, first, I want to applaud you. It's really nice to care about people, but I also want to caution you because the desire to not cause harm is one of the main reasons why people don't show up to the work. And if you're not showing up to the work, you don't even have an opportunity to do anything that could reduce the harm that's being happened, because ultimately, harm reduction is something that you should care about, but it's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to take the next step every single day. Your responsibility is to be responsive to the people that you're trying to help. But sometimes, and this has happened, sometimes there are structures that have to get harmed. There are structures that have to be dismantled, and the dismantling of said structures will cause harm. I don't know if people really understand this, but if we were to truly make a meaningful revolution in this world, there's going to be a lot of things that subconsciously that people really enjoy that are going to go away. And the personality parts that are reliant on that are going to experience pain. They're going to experience discomfort. And they might even run around in the world and say, "Help, I am being harmed." Because ultimately, the only way to know if someone is being harmed or is just facing discomfort is by looking at it over the long term. And this is really difficult for people. If I step on someone's toes and they go, "Ouch," I have an intuition that I might have harmed them, but I'm not going to know ultimately until I see their cast. And this is really difficult because people hear that pain and they want to respond to it immediately. But sometimes being that responsive to just pain and discomfort is getting in the way of helping people to grow. It's removing some really important data from the system that can tell the system, here is what needs to be adjusted to make sure that this transition can be as comfortable as possible, which still might be painful for individuals and for other people. So I really just want to decenter the idea of harm reduction, because the only way to do harm reduction is to cause harm and to be aware of causing harm, not in sort of an abstract anxiety-inducing way, but to show up every single day with as much awareness as you can bring and with enough receptiveness so that if someone goes, "Hey, ouch, I didn't like that," you can have the sense of presence to hear them, to listen to their experience, and actually know if what you did caused harm long term. And vice versa, if you're someone who's looking for help from an ally, it's also part of your responsibility to make sure that you can pay attention to your own harm, being able to separate my own personal discomfort from my long-term harm, so that we're not disincentivizing people that want to help us from showing up. It's a two-way street. So again, the easiest way to do this is not to think about harm at all, but really just think about, how do you want to show up? Is that in alignment with who you want to be? And what are some early warning signs that might suggest that the way that you're trying to go about that isn't effective and is maybe causing harm long term? Using these early warning signs, or as I like to call them, cheap lessons, allows you to gain confidence to show up in the fight knowing that, okay, here's the threshold of harm that I can cause, that I can rectify. This is a big one. Like when I used to play Ultimate Frisbee, I was not the most conscious player. I'd run into people a lot. I'd knock people down, and I'm not super proud of it. But what I did learn, being someone who kind of threw elbows and threw themselves around the field, was how to stop play immediately, check in on people and make sure that they were okay before I moved on. And that didn't stop me from making big plays and doing the stuff that I need to do, but I did have that self-trust to know I can only ever harm someone so much, and I've shown up to the work enough that I know how to effectively take care of people who I do harm. Because the real skill set isn't avoiding the harm altogether, it's being able to repair whatever relationships get broken by not, you know, being able to do it right the first time. Because again, this will just lead to perfectionism, and perfectionism, over empathizing with other people, taking too much responsibility in situations are actually the things that stop people from showing up to the work. So if you're really interested in figuring out how to avoid causing harm for people, or specifically learn how to cause harm effectively, learn how to be aware of the impact that you're having by doing action instead of just thinking, sign up for Mastering the Game of Allyship. We're having these conversations in our Facebook group all the time. You can workshop with us to figure out like, ooh, was this weird? But really, all we're going to tell you is, well, go ask the person who this is affecting. Stretch that muscle of being receptive to feedback from people early and often, but without being like annoying, and you'll be able to solve this sort of for yourself. And more importantly, your subconscious will have an intuition for the types of things that are impactful, that scale easily, and that ecologically affect the community in a positive way that naturally reduces harm. So tell me what you think about that, and hit me up if you have any more questions about the program.